Finally tonight, after all that news, we thought we'd bring you this. Making a splash. First Lady Melania Trump hosted the White House Blue Room. She invited them to come up and share a word to describe the emotions they feel at school, at home, or with their peers. Responsible, happy, nervous were some of the responses written on that board right there. Those very words could be used to describe perhaps this moment.
How do you feel before or better?
Well, I'm energized. I don't really function well without
energized. Beautiful. That's no problem. Don't worry. It's just the water, okay?
Knocks over the glass, and there's one word for that: gracious, from the First Lady. They're talking to middle schoolers on a day where there was a lot of news, a ton of it. Thanks for inviting us into your home tonight. That's it for this special report. Fair, balanced, and unafraid. We have you covered every element of it. The story, guest hosted by Bill Hemmer. What a day to guest host, Bill.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Brett, thank you, and good evening to you. I am Bill Hemmer in tonight for my colleague, Martha MacCallum, and we shall pick up the story from here. Now, moments ago, the president giving a forceful defense over the events breaking late today. The FBI raiding the offices of his longtime personal lawyer, Michael Cohen. There are reports tonight they were looking for bank records. We don't know what they found, but we do know the president is not holding back on his position regarding the special counsel, Bob Mueller, and his team. Now, we are finding his comments to be so compelling moments ago, we want our viewers just joining us to have a moment to watch them yet again. After those comments, you will hear from Sean Spicer. You will hear legal analysis from the judge, Anna Napolitano, who has just learned from sources about the state of that investigation. But first, here are the 8 minutes from the White House with the president surrounded by members of his cabinet, senior military leadership, who had gathered to talk about the crisis ongoing in Syria. You're about to hear all of that right now.
So I just heard that they broke into the office of one of my personal attorneys, good man, and it's a disgraceful situation. It's a total witch hunt. I've been saying it for a long time. I've wanted to keep it down. We've given, I believe, over 1 million pages worth of documents to the special counsel. They continue to just go forward, and here we are talking about Syria. We're talking about a lot of serious things with the greatest fighting force ever. And I have this witch hunt constantly going on for over 12 months now. And actually much more than that. You could say it was right after I won the nomination it started. And it's a disgrace. It's frankly a real disgrace. It's an attack on our country in a true sense. It's an attack on what we all stand for. So when I saw this and when I heard it like you did. I said, that is really now in a whole new level of unfairness. So this has been going on. I saw one of the reporters who is not necessarily a fan of mine, not necessarily very good to me. He said, in effect, that this is ridiculous. This is now getting ridiculous. They found no collusion whatsoever with Russia. The reason they found it is there was no collusion at all. No collusion. This is the most biased group of people. These people have the biggest conflicts of interest I've ever seen. Democrats, all, or just about all, either Democrats or a couple of Republicans that worked for President Obama. They're not looking at the other side. They're not looking at the Hillary Clinton horrible things that she did and all of the crimes that were committed. They're not looking at all of the things that happened that everybody is very angry about, I can tell you, from the Republican side, and I think even the independent side. They only keep looking at us. So they find no collusion, and then they go from there and they say, well, let's keep going. And they raid an office of a personal attorney early in the morning. And I think it's a disgrace. So we'll be talking about it more. But this is the most conflicted group of people I've ever seen. The Attorney General made a terrible mistake when he did this and when he recused himself, or he should have certainly let us know if he was going to recuse himself, and we would have put a different Attorney General in. So he made what I consider to be a very terrible mistake for the country. But you'll figure that out. All I can say is after looking for a long period of time, and even before the special counsel, because it really started just about from the time I won the nomination. And you look at what took place and what happened, and it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. I've been president now for what seems like a lengthy period of time. We've done a fantastic job. We've beaten ISIS. We have just about 100% of the caliphate or the land. Our economy is incredible. The stock market dropped a lot today as soon as they heard the noise of, this nonsense that's going on. It dropped a lot. It was up, way up, and then it dropped quite a bit at the end, a lot. But that we have to go through that. We've had that hanging over us now from the very, very beginning. And yet the other side, they don't even bother looking. And the other side is where there are crimes, and those crimes are obvious. Lies under oath all over the place. Emails that are knocked out, that are acid washed and deleted. Nobody's ever seen. 33,000 emails are deleted after getting a subpoena for Congress, and nobody bothers looking at that. And many, many other things. So I just think it's a disgrace that a thing like this can happen. With all of that being said, we are here to discuss Syria tonight. We're the greatest fighting force anywhere in the world. These gentlemen and ladies are incredible people, incredible talent. And we're making a decision as to what we do with respect to the horrible attack that was made near Damascus. And it will be met, and it will be met forcefully. And when, I will not say, because I don't like talking about timing. But we are developing the greatest force that we've ever had. We had $700 billion just approved, which was the reason I went along with that budget, because we had to fix our military. General Mattis would tell you that above anybody. We had to fix our military. And right now we're in a big process of doing that. $700 billion and then $716 billion next year. So we're going to make a decision tonight or very shortly thereafter. And you'll be hearing the decision. But we can't let atrocities like we all witnessed, and you can see that, and it's horrible. We can't let that happen. In our world, we can't let that happen. Especially when we're able to, because of the power of the United States, because of the power of our country, we're able to stop it. I want to thank Ambassador John Bolton for joining us. I think he's going to be a fantastic representative of our team. He's highly respected by everybody in this room. And John, I want to thank you very much. This is going to be a lot of work. Interesting day. He picked today as his first day. So, generals, I think he picked the right day. But certainly you're going to find it very exciting. But you are going to do a fantastic job, and I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Any concerns about what the FBI might find, Mr. President?
No.
Do you have any concerns?
No, I'm not.
Did you have an affair with Stormy Daniels?
Why don't I just fire Mueller? Well, I think it's a disgrace what's going on. We'll see what happens. But I think it's really a sad situation when you look at what happened. And many people have said you should fire him. Again, they found nothing. And in finding nothing, that's a big statement. If you know the person who's in charge of the investigation, you know all about that, Deputy Rosenstein, Rod Rosenstein. He wrote the letter very critical of Comey. One of the things I said, I fired Comey. Well, I turned out to do the right thing, because you look at all of the things that he's done and the lies, and you look at what's gone on at the FBI with the insurance policy and all of the things that happened. Turned out I did the right thing. But he signed, as you know, he also signed the FISA warrant. So Rod Rosenstein, who's in charge of this, signed a FISA warrant, and he also signed a letter that was essentially saying to fire James Comey. And he was right about that. He was absolutely right. So we'll see what happens. I think it's disgraceful, and so does a lot of other people. This is a pure and simple witch hunt. Thank you very much. Thank you, please.
Will Rod Rosenstein keep his job?
Thank you.
Will Rod Rosenstein keep his job?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Syria, it would be just or you're going to witness a change of
Thank you.
Thank
you, Cecilia. Thanks, everyone. Thank you all.
Say it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
We are getting clarity on that. Who was responsible for the weapons attack? We are getting some very good clarity, actually. Okay. We have some pretty good answers.
Thanks, everyone. What are your options? Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
We have a lot of options militarily, and we'll be letting you know pretty soon. Okay?
Thanks, everyone. Thank you all.
Probably after the fact.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Do you think Assad's lying?
Thanks, John.
John, thank
Do you
you.
think Assad's lying?
John, thank you.
John,
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So there you have a lot to comment on now. With me, Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary. And Sean, good evening to you. There was a lot that was spoken during that meeting there at the White House that is ongoing at the moment. We'll see what decisions they make on Syria. First, on the FBI raid, what do you make of that tonight? Do you see it also as a witch hunt, Sean?
Well, I think it's an escalation on both fronts, Bill, to be honest with you. I mean, you see the raid of a private attorney to the president tonight by the FBI. That is definitely a major move. And then the president's reaction tonight, as John Roberts reported, I think definitely the words that the president chose tonight to describe his feelings about that raid definitely raised the stakes. So I think you've seen two moves, both escalating the situation. And I don't think that we've heard the last of the president's feelings on this.
Yeah,
I'll leave the legal analysis to I'll leave the legal analysis to Judge Napolitano, but as a layman, I will tell you that I think that when you're going to raid the private home and offices of the president's personal attorney, that better be real good.
You worked with the president quite closely for a good amount of time. Do you think now is the time that he ditches Bob Mueller? Do you think it's at that point?
Well, look, I hope that I think the president's point that he made early on in his comments that there has been no evidence of collusion. I think what the president has to hopefully be reassured by his counsel is that so far this is not about him. It's never been about him, and that his job is to make sure that he stays focused on governing the country and stays focused on implementing his agenda. And, you know, we can't speak to everyone around him what they may or may not have done, but we have to let the process play out. And so I would urge the president to listen to his counsel, and my guess is that his counsel is telling him that this investigation continues to not focus on him or collusion, and since he can't speak to the actions of others, let the special prosecutor, let the FBI play this out, see what evidence they have before taking it a step too far. But I think that the quickest way to wrap this up is to let them do their job and let the pieces fall where they may.
Do you think the tendency is greater or less tonight that he sits down with Bob Mueller then?
Well, you know, again, I'm not an attorney in this. I think that it's a rabbit hole to go down if the president were to sit down with him. So of all of my legal training, which extends, goes to watching Law and Order, I don't think it's a good idea for him to sit down and do this, because once you sit down, you don't know where it ends up. That being said, I think the president knows that he hasn't done anything wrong. He's made his position clear on multiple occasions, and I think he wants to see this thing wrapped up and sees a conversation with Mr. Mueller as the quickest way to do it. So, ultimately, this is going to be a decision that he and his attorneys make on what is going to wrap this up quicker, sooner rather than later, and in a manner that ensures that the president doesn't get stuck going down 800 rabbit holes on non-germane topics.
He brought up the Clinton email matter too. When you were with him, how much of that bothered him? And was it a daily thing, or how would you describe that, Sean?
I don't know that it's a daily thing, but it's not just him. I think there's a lot of people on my side of the aisle, Bill, that are sort of continue to scratch their heads and say, so far you've seen an investigation that didn't have to do with collusion go on and on. My hope, by the way, is that this investigation continues to be focused very broadly on Russian interference. We continue to see evidence of that. I think where the president needs to sit back and listen to his attorneys and say, this investigation hopefully is more about the broader meddling of Russia in our election, and that they're going to come back and look at those bad actors like the Russians that they indicted, and that hopefully will be the focuses. With respect to Hillary Clinton, I think there's a lot of people who continue to wonder how you can have that many infractions of the law, have that many law enforcement officials claim that there was a problem and then see no action. I think it's a huge frustration.
Yeah. How much of this is a distraction inside the West Wing today?
Well, I think it's obviously a bit of a distraction. You've got a big issue. He's sitting there around that table with all of those top military leaders dealing with how to react to the actions that were taken in Syria this weekend, that vicious and horrible chemical attack. And they're sitting around trying to discuss what the proper role of the United States is in ending that kind of atrocity. And to be distracted by this isn't helpful to anybody. It's not helpful not just to the staff there in the West Wing, but frankly to the country as a whole. We've got big issues happening not just domestically, but around the world. And I think our focus as a country and as he as a leader needs to be on making sure that we're fighting for humankind around the world.
Yeah, Sean, there's another topic that I wanted to get to quickly. There was a piece on 60 Minutes last night that talked about Russian hackers in the Illinois state election system. And the piece reports that the administration, the Obama administration, got together with all the heads of states, all the elections officials across the country, and gave them a warning. Was your campaign ever given information?
The British as well, it will be a wide-ranging air campaign. I think you will see, not just cruise missiles, I think you'll see B-2s and B-1s with fighter escorts from the French and U.S. destroying.
Suggesting that the Tomahawk missiles were used a year ago.
Yeah,
and that was not enough.
No, I think it'll be an escalation of that, which you need to do if you're really taking out hardened facilities. And I think you will see a serious degradation of Syrian air capability, especially, but also command and control as it pertains to chemical weapons.
Juan, you wrote a piece today in The Hill, and it's titled Trump's Nest of Hawks. Now, that is based on the first day on the job for John Bolton. But Juan, when you look at the state of affairs in the world today, maybe this president needs a lot of hawks.
I don't think he needs a lot of hawks. I think he needs people that put options on the table, including military options, Bill. And so you have a situation here where John Bolton comes in, and people might remember Bolton as a huge advocate of the U.S. going to war in the Bush administration in Iraq. But also Bolton is a guy who doesn't believe in a two-state solution. He's a guy who thinks that a preemptory strike against North Korea is a legitimate step. But I am taken by what we just heard Josh say, that basically, if we can get alliances in place, if we can work with the French, the Turks are on our side in this, if we can, in fact, bring people together to say this is unacceptable behavior, then I think we can, in fact, clear out some airspace, allowing the rebels the opportunity and hopefully signal very clearly to the Russians and to the Iranians that we are not going to be intimidated by the fact that they are backing Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah, General, do you think there is an opportunity here, even though Russia called this fake news earlier today? Is there an opportunity to appeal to Putin where you make the Russian leader a statesman in this, and he turns on Assad? Is that possible, or is that a pipe dream?
Well, I think, Bill, Russia's already made their statement. They've already played their chips in this, round of poker here. You always want to exercise the elements of national power, diplomatic, information, military, and economic. And to the extent that you can bring Putin to the table, it's worth a shot. But I really think it would just delay our response. And really what our national security team needs to be doing, the National Command Authority right now, is developing the options that Juan talked about and come on strong and destroy the capability capability. You know, we have a national security strategy that talks about not allowing the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and a rules-based international order on the rule of law. And so those two things are paramount if we are going to, you know, live the way that the United States wants to live.
General, thank you for your time. Tom Rogan, thanks to you. Juan Williams, my colleague, thanks as well to you. Thank you, gentlemen. In a moment here, turning to other news, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg on the Hill for what's expected to be a long, tense 2 days of hearings that will begin tomorrow. Senate Commerce Committee Chair John Thune sat down with Zuckerberg today. What he said, plus a preview of what's happening tomorrow. Do not move. We are back in a moment. Whose company serves 2 billion people around the world is meeting with several lawmakers on the Hill today. The hearing for the Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg will run for hours starting tomorrow. It'll last 2 days, and the company's already in damage control mode. It's rolling out new policies to increase transparency, and Zuckerberg expected to take full responsibility on this matter. Here now exclusively, one of the senators who met face-to-face with Zuckerberg today, Senate Commerce Committee Chair John Thune. Senator, good evening, and thank you for being a part of our program tonight.
Good evening, Bill.
What did you ask him?
Well, first off, I mean, we talked about the hearing tomorrow and about privacy and what constitutes meaningful consent for a user of Facebook. And we talked about the importance of him owning up and taking responsibility for what happened. And obviously, this is an opportunity for him to get some trust back, I think, from the American people. But this is really about trust. And I think Facebook is right to have him here. I think it's important for him to get out in front of this issue. And the fact that he's going to testify tomorrow and spend several hours answering questions, I think, is part of the accountability that we need to expect from him and his company.
I've read his statement. He seems contrite. Was that your impression?
It is, and I think he gets it. I think he really understands that they made mistakes and that he's got to own up to those, and he's got to tell us what he's going to do to protect users' data going forward and what they're going to do to stop the harmful conduct that now they're trying to go back and deal with. These are problems that need to be addressed.
Here's part of his statement. I'll just show our viewers. I started Facebook, he's going to say. I run it, and I'm responsible for what happens here. Republican lawmakers don't like to regulate. Are you seeing a case being made for this company?
Well, I mean, in terms of regulation, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, well, look, I think that we're not ruling anything out at this point, but clearly there were lines that were crossed. There was a lot of, we were talking about 300,000 users, and then all of a sudden it exploded into 87 million users now who had their information compromised. And I'm a light touch guy when it comes to regulation, but I think we have to be open to steps that we can take to ensure that there is the transparency and the accountability that the American people need to expect. I mean, when they sign these agreements, do they know what they're signing? And is there a meaningful consent when they're allowing Facebook, this company, to use their data?
That's a key phrase, meaningful consent. Right. No one's forcing anyone to sign up. But you're making that decision on your own, right, Senator?
Yeah, it is, and obviously it's a decision that a lot of Americans make, and 1.4 billion people every single day use Facebook, which is why this is such a worldwide and global issue, but one that we clearly need for the protection of the American people's privacy and their data need to address.
I imagine it will get political. I imagine the Russia matter will come up.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah. Do you expect any surprises in the 15 seconds we have left here?
I don't think any big surprises other than, you're right, they're going to try and play the Russia issue to the hilt. But there are lots of other issues that will come up, and that we'll examine this more fully in the days and weeks and months ahead. But this is an important first step.
Thank you, Senator. We'll talk again soon. John Thune there from the Hill. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
In a moment here, President Trump not holding back, with cameras rolling tonight on news that his longtime lawyer is now being targeted by the FBI. What are the implications moving forward on this? Chris Starwalt on the political fallout coming up next.
The Attorney General made a terrible mistake when he did this and when he recused himself, or he should have certainly let us know if he was going to recuse himself, and we would have put a different Attorney General in.
So that was a short time ago. President Trump taking a shot at his Attorney General Jeff Sessions yet again. The recusal early on, the Russia matter. Chris Starwalt here to analyze the breaking news of the evening. Chris, good evening to you. Sean Spicer last hour said certainly it's a distraction in the West Wing. You can understand why it would be. This maybe doesn't come up every day, but it comes up often. What is your view of the events tonight, Chris, with Michael?
Well, and as you saw there, whether it's coming up, it is definitely on the president's mind, and how could it not be? You saw his response there, very visceral, very emotional response from the president, and of course done in the context of those folks sitting around that room where you have military brass in uniform, your national security advisor. This is not the kind of setting in which you would normally expect to hear sort of fulminations about it's a case against your personal lawyer, but obviously it is on the president's minds constantly because, of course, it represents an existential threat to his presidency.
But your job is to analyze the impact on elections. And you've got a midterm coming up in 7 months. There was a piece in the New York Times today talked about raising the possibility, if Democrats gain the House, of an impeachment proceeding, whether there's grounds for it or not. New York Times writes this on screen. A strategy is emerging on the right for how to energize conservatives and drive a wedge between the anti-Trump left and moderate voters. Warn that Democrats will immediately move to impeach President Trump if they capture the House. Can that be a rallying cry for the right?
Absolutely. And we have already seen Republicans use it effectively, which is to say, and of course, there are certain Democrats. It's not a mainstream Democratic position that impeachment will automatically follow. But there are Democrats, especially some like Tom Steyer, who are looking at a 2020 run, that they're going to continue to churn that up because it excites a certain part of the Democratic base. But we know in base politics that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And now Republicans are exploiting the fear of a potential impeachment, which, of course, is stoked by events like today, to say to their base, you better get out there and vote. You better not stay home. You better go vote, because even if you don't like the Republicans, even if you're not satisfied with the policies, they're going to take your president away from you if they get control of the House.
And when we talk about impeachment proceedings, that's all we're talking about are proceedings.
Right.
You can make a case. That doesn't mean the case is going to go through, and you can pick any one of 10 if you do not like this president to go after. I just want to be clear on that.
That's right.
I think things changed a little bit today in the state of Florida. Rick Scott is going to run for a Senate seat, a popular governor. He's won 2 statewide races. He's got a lot of money, big, thick wallet, and he's going to take on what seems to be a pretty popular Democrat in Bill Nelson. This is going to be watched, Chris, as one of the marquee matchups. How do you see it play out? What is your view about how competitive this became today?
Well, you got a person with high statewide name recognition plus a big fat wallet that he has been more than willing in the past to dump into competitive races before. So this automatically moves this race into a top tier contender where we're going to have to watch it very closely. What it means in a larger sense, though, is that for Democrats, they're already dealing with the worst map in the Senate in generations. It's tough for them because of they're paying the piper for their successes in 2006 and 2012. So they got a lot of Democrats in red states. Republicans adding Florida to that map makes it harder for Democrats because now they got to put resources there, they got to put attention there, they got to put focus there instead of the four easiest ones, North Dakota, West Virginia, Missouri, and Indiana. Then Democrats also want to be focused on the Southwest, Arizona and Nevada. They want to think about those to flip. Going to Florida, arguably the most expensive swing state, that's going to be tough.
It's a great point. Nice to see you tonight, Chris.
You bet.
Chris Starwald in D.C. We will be right back after this.